Welcome to WYCD Wicked. That stands for What You Can Do. It's your old pal, Jake. How y'all doing today? Let me say hi to the audience. First up, Donald James, good to see you. Wireless Mike, hello. The Letter Hack, good to see you. Pinker Bell, the Anti-Corporatist. My word, Wicked Foxy Dragon. Darn it. I'm looking at some health news here. Well, hopefully the furry one gets better. Let me, there, Tinkerbell, start fictitious beef over it. Fair enough. Oh, man. Okay. Here's the deal. I want to start by doing a follow-up to yesterday's segment. We had a lot of Ramaswamy supporters pop in and get angry with me for not showing Ramaswamy's response to a critique by an audience member. Just to be clear, I should be recording right now. Had a lot of Ramaswamy supporters, respond to a video yesterday wherein we were looking at a critique of Ramaswamy by somebody in the audience, and I don't really care what Ramaswamy had to say, and I made that clear at the time. But I had tons of people write in as Ramaswamy supporters saying, why are you not showing what he had to say? And I think it's odd that they watched enough of the video to apparently know that I didn't show what he had to say, and yet they didn't hear me answer their question within that video. So, if you are joining us tonight, fellas, I assume, what's up? Thanks for coming in. I will take an honest whack. I will actually go through it. Just to be clear, though, yesterday, I did tell you why. And I'll restate it here. Vivek Ramaswamy is a con man. There's no point. There's beyond appeasing you and showing you what the process would look like of parsing through this guy's statements. There's no point in listening to him. We have a rule at WYCD. If somebody shows themselves to be unworthy of trust, we just don't waste time with them. Not personal. It's just it's a matter of time management. Vivek Ramaswamy is not worthy of trust. He has, for example, said that we are not going to be able to fund Social Security in 10 years, 20 years, whatever he says. That's just a straight out lie. It's a lie. And so on with this guy. But okay, for a refresher, here's what we're talking about. It was this gal.
We are here again. My fellow New Hampshire residents are being manipulated by showmen and Trump wannabes to win our votes.
So here's the thing. Before we get into Ramaswamy's response, let me just be clear. That sentence right there is sort of the crux of the matter. If you're a fan of Ramaswamy, it's because you're being manipulated by showmen. You are easily conned by that very obvious con man. It's going to hurt to hear, but consider that not everybody that tells you things that you want to hear all the time is telling you the truth. In fact, if people tell you what you want to hear all the time, they are almost certainly lying to you. Consider that. But presumably, if you are one of, I think, 4 people that may join us today, you've already seen my response yesterday. Here's Ramaswamy talking. We're going to go past everything she
Our
said.
vice president.
But get to the question.
Entry vice president. Fundamental skepticism. I will say, questions are welcome. Just the.
Okay. Now, as I said yesterday, this is a response from Ramaswamy that I come close to respecting, genuinely, because he doesn't bully her for just tearing him to shreds. But he doesn't piece himself back together either. What were her complaints? Essentially, he's not qualified for office. How does he say he's going to get around that? He's not qualified to run a principal's office, much less the presidency.
End him with the question mark is all I say. So here's what I will say. What do I hear embedded in that question? There's a fundamental skepticism of somebody who comes from outside and take as an entry-level job. That was what was in your question,
Yep.
which I think is a valid criticism. An entry-level job to be the U.S. president. Let me just share with you one of my learnings in this campaign. We have an imperfect system right now, and you all face imperfect.
We'll set aside the awkward language learnings. Right there. What do you mean something you learned in the campaign? I know, he's going to make a point. You probably, if you're here as a Ramaswamy fan and you got through my razzing of you earlier, you're probably eager to hear what he actually has to say. But we can't just, and this is part of why we skipped his nonsense. We can't just blow past things that are ridiculous to get to the good part. We have to talk about all of it if it's relevant. What the is he talking about? Just structurally. Already. He says, let me tell you about my learnings in the campaign. He asked you why you ran in the first place. You shouldn't need to have had an experience during the campaign that made you think, oh, I might be a good president. You should have thought that before you came in. Your answer should be relatively quick and succinct. It should have been probably the first thing you thought about. The first thing you thought about when deciding whether you would run for president. Am I qualified? Why? You should have a one-sentence response ready to go. All right, let's hear more about his learnings during the campaign.
Perfect choices in that system. We were talking about this backstage. What was the number one learning for me? This is a super PAC puppet game. It's my number one learning coming in from the outside. You're told that candidates actually run campaigns that you fund by giving $35 contributions? Nonsense.
True, so far.
The system is funded by not multimillionaires, multi-billionaires who use politicians in both parties, Democrat and Republican Party, as their puppets. The super PACs are a cancer on our system. So if you want to break that system, and I'll tell you, it's a law of nature. It's like a law of physics. As the sun rises in the east and sets in the west, every politician dances to the tune of their biggest donor. It's just a fact.
True, followed by the next thing we hear from him is going to be a gigantic lie.
Now, in my case, it is true that that biggest donor is me.
Gigantic lie. Do you see what I'm talking about? You understand? He won't lose him. Just let's not even look up who gave him money. Let's not even bother going that far. Let's just take this at the surface level. He's not going to lose his own support, is he? So he says everybody does what their biggest donor, and he got me to say true. That's actually not, but let me jump back in a second. We'll split that hair in a moment, but let's take it as true for now. Everybody does what their biggest donor wants them to do. In its essence, let's say that's true. They do whatever their biggest donor, who will leave if they don't do what they ask, will do. Is he going to stop donating to himself? No. So, by his own logic, he must do whatever his second biggest donor asks him to do. It's fundamentally no different. It is tedious. It's nitpicky, or at least it feels nitpicky, except it has massive practical implications. When I tell you he's a con artist, this is what I am talking about. He says stuff like that. And I can tell you, if I look it up, I'm probably going to find out that just like Trump, this guy is not the biggest donor to his own campaign. In fact, some super PAC is going to be the biggest donor to his campaign. However, even if he was, just structurally what he's saying does not make any sense. He's saying because he gives the most money, he'll do whatever he wants? No, it does not. It doesn't work like that. If he gives the most money to himself, but he still gets $1 million from somebody else, come on, a super PAC that's allowed to give $1 million. He's in need of that super PAC. Also, by the way, he's then invested his own money into this enterprise and desperately will be trying to recoup that expense. So yes, he is every bit as beholden to donors because he doesn't swear off giant donations. It is... It's less the actual point here about the donors. Because you just say other things. I'll play some of these other things, and we can go through this. But if you actually made it this far, if you were a Ramaswamy fan, and this guy had duped you into being one, first of all, don't feel too bad. He is a professional con man. I mean, he's conned big businesses for quite a while now. But now you understand. Now you understand how it works. He says things that are true but tricky, and they don't actually mean what it sounds like they mean if you stop and think about it for just 5 minutes. But he says them in forums like this. Right, y'all? Where people don't have a chance to stop and think about it for just 5 minutes. And he knows that the people he cons don't want to find out he's lying, because they like the surface level things about him. He talks like this. Ha! They like a jackass like that. They like the kind of person who pretends they're hip by wearing a suit but no tie. Effing clown. Anyway, here he is bullshitting you some more.
Now, do I want a system in which only people who have had the level of success that I've had in the world of business and the American dream are the ones who are able to run for president? No. But is that better than a system where it's somebody else's billionaire puppet that's on that debate stage that actually is just uttering words handed to them by a billionaire-provided super PAC? Yes, I think that's better. And I think if we're going to address...
Notice, and you know what? I'll give him a chance. But I'll ask you this. He just talked about the inherent inequity of a system where the rich, theoretically, only have the ability to run without bowing down to the rich. I would counter that by saying, what are you talking about? It's still just the rich making all the decisions. Doesn't matter if the candidate's the rich person or the person entirely funding the candidates are the rich person. It's just different robber barons. Who cares? What I would pose to you is this. If he's serious about what he's saying, when he says, I don't want a system like that. If he's serious about that, is he actually going to suggest a way, like campaign finance reform, that we could, say, change the system? Let's find out.
Address the corruption in Washington, D.C. The corruption of people, and there are other candidates in this race that fit this description, making millions of dollars off of connections in government service, afterwards, lobbying in a career using government connections. This is corruption that exists in both parties. Then yes, I do think it will take an outsider to that system.
Great. I would love for us to address lobbying after having a career in Congress or in public service. Clearly, he doesn't plan on being a lobbyist after this, or he would just never bring that up. But I note, no campaign finance reform. Nope. He did what he always will do. He lampshades his own faults and then pretends like he's addressing them when he's actually talking about something wildly unrelated. Sort of like how you'll hear Republicans say there's a major fentanyl problem in the United States. So we need to address the crisis at the southern border. Totally unrelated. Fentanyl comes in mostly through U.S. citizens at legal border crossings. Y'all do it. U.S. citizens watching this. I know, we have a lot of folks from around the world. But if you're a U.S. citizen, or you're holding one hostage and trying to keep them entertained, then y'all are responsible. It's the same thing. There's another 10 minutes of this clown talking, which will turn into a 40-minute video of me addressing all the nonsense that he does. He's not a real candidate, so he's not worth taking seriously. And serious people don't enjoy having their time wasted. And my audience largely consists of serious people. I invite you to join them and become a serious person yourself. And you'll know you're there when you're not interested in Vivek Ramaswamy. Thank you for putting up with me tonight. Let's see what the Wicked community has to say. Wireless Mike, if he really supported himself, he'd do something about that stupid head shape. Look, those of us who have stupidly shaped heads just try our best. Tinkerbell, the inability to identify charlatans will doom us all. Yes, it will. Tao and Jack, hello all. Vivek is making some sense, but I think he is full of it and a hypocrite. Overturn Citizens United versus U.S. now. Get corporations out of politics. Yeah, and that's why I'm so careful to point out that Vivek Ramaswamy is a con man. That whole thing where he makes some sense, it's part of the strategy. And he's just hoping to catch enough people with ADD who will listen to the first part of the sentence and not have the patience to listen to all the other stuff. And he tends to get more and more vague the closer he gets to an actual plan of action. There's a reason for that, because he doesn't want to be held to an actual plan of action. Obsessive Audio, having a chuckle. Bernie and Warren couldn't get the dark money out yet, but yeah, sure, Vivek could do it, while not even mentioning a policy proposal. Yeah, amazing. Amazing fella. Tao and Jack, oh my God, I agree with Matt Gaetz about capping PAC money. Yes, good Lord. Obsessive Audio, alien emoji, head shape explained, possibly. That's true. He might be actually from outer space. Donald James, he's appealing to many with that rhetoric. I heard Gates and AOC were working together to put caps on PAC donations. Yes, good. Honestly, that is how I want us all to work with MAGA types. I'm not interested in trying to convince them to be human beings. But if they say they're against, whatever thing is popular for them to say they're against, great, let's use it. As long as it aligns with what we're trying to do, fantastic. Welcome aboard, devils. We'll vote together on this. I'm gonna still work hard to put Gates in an actual prison cell. But in the meantime, I'll take his vote on whatever. Tinkerbell, and these people think leftists are a threat. The same people who want politicians who will demolish the federal government and are actually in a position to do so. Yeah, I don't think any of the people that were complaining in yesterday's video actually listened to it, actually care, and most importantly, I don't think they understand anything about what Vivek Ramaswamy says he wants to do. I don't think they understand just fundamentally how politics function. I don't think they even have a sense of who their governor is in their state. I mean, they really, truly don't know anything from what I've seen. And I look forward to being proven wrong if that's the case. But I think just making the kids go sit at the kids' table is when we're talking serious stuff, is the merciful thing to do for everybody involved. Oh, we've got some fun stuff to talk about tonight. Oh boy, let's hope that I stay connected. Ooh. Oh. Sorry, folks. I'm just dealing with an error message right now. Well, we're going to chuck on, and hopefully it'll be okay. This is too good not to talk about, so I'm going. Stand by, y'all. Okay. All right, yeah, we are good. Folks, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but Donald Trump's in a piece of legal trouble. Sidney Powell said she was going to release the Kraken, which was apparently her flamboyant, and I can appreciate that, her flamboyant way of saying she was going to bother us all with frivolous lawsuits in the hopes that there would be enough corrupt judges that she could do a quiet and boring legal coup d'etat. And she failed. And then Trump failed with his riot-turned coup attempt. I guess just straight-up coup attempt. Good Lord. They all failed. And now, one by one, they're needing to face the music. All of the traitors are finding themselves in front of a judge. And with the evidence placed in a neat little stack, and nothing exonerating them. What do you do if that's you, and you've got a law degree, and you have some sense of how serious the charges are? You plead guilty. According to the Associated Press, Sidney Powell pleads guilty over efforts to overturn Trump's loss in Georgia and agrees to cooperate. Oh, wait, you thought that was it? We'll read that in a moment. Let's watch it happen.
You're giving up the right to appeal if convicted of these charges after trial.
Yes.
Has anyone forced, threatened, or promised you anything in order to enter into this guilty plea?
Other than what is recited in the documents, no.
How do you plead to 5 counts of conspiracy to commit intentional interference with the performance of election duties and 1 count of conspiracy to commit criminal trespass?
Let me approach for a second. We changed. There's the trespass count was changed, so it's 6 counts. It's 6 counts of the first.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Sorry, thank you. I apologize. How do you plead to the 6 counts of conspiracy to commit intentional interference with performance of election duties?
Guilty.
Do you understand that you may have a limited right to appeal, which I've gone over with you?
Yes.
I'm not sure I covered it all. Judge, if this case had gone to trial, the state would have shown that between the dates of December 1st of 2020 and January 7th of 2021, the defendant, Sidney Powell, along with several co-conspirators, entered into a conspiracy to intervene with the performance of election duties of co-defendant Misty Hampton, also known as Emily Misty Hayes. At all.
Just appreciate the seriousness of what was just said. If this had gone to trial, we were going to demonstrate that Sidney Powell entered into a conspiracy with, and then they named somebody who is likely not named in Trump's portion of the case.
Times relevant to the conspiracy, Misty Hampton was the elections director for Coffee County, Georgia, and was subject to all duties imposed by Chapter 2 of Title 21 of OCGA. The purpose of the conspiracy was to use Misty Hampton's position to unlawfully access secure elections machines in Coffee County, Georgia. This conspiracy included the following objectives. 1, to willfully tamper with electronic ballot markers and tabulating machines. 2, to cause certain members of the conspiracy who were not officers charged by law with the care of ballots and who were not persons entrusted by any such officer with the care of ballots for a purpose required by law to possess official ballots outside of the polling place.
Literally
3,
stealing your vote.
to use a computer with knowledge that such use was without authority and with the intention of taking and appropriating information, data, and software, the property of Dominion Voting Systems Corporation. 4, to use a computer with knowledge that such use was without authority and with the intention of removing voting data and Dominion Voting Systems Corporation data from said computer. 5, to use a computer with the intention of examining personal voter data with knowledge that such examination was without authority. Each of these constituted attempts to interfere with, hinder, and delay Missy Hampton in the performance of her election duties. In further of these conspiracies, the defendant entered into a contract with Sullivan Strickler LLC in Fulton County, Georgia, and delivered a payment to Sullivan Strickler LLC in Fulton County, Georgia, and caused employees of Sullivan Strickler LLC to travel from Fulton County, Georgia to Coffee County, Georgia, for the purpose of accomplishing the objectives of this conspiracy. These were overt acts to affect the object of the conspiracy. The data taken from Coffee County, Georgia, was distributed to members of the conspiracy and unknown persons in Georgia and elsewhere.
She pled guilty. She pleaded guilty to conspiracy. She agreed to testify in this case about a conspiracy. That means her co-conspirators are screwed. Now, let's go to that article. Decline AP. Lawyer Sidney Powell pleaded guilty to reduced charges Thursday over efforts to overturn Donald Trump's loss in the 2020 election in Georgia, becoming the second defendant in the sprawling case to reach a deal with prosecutors. Powell, charged alongside Trump and 17 others. Guys, the Republican Party is a criminal organization. 17 others. 17 henchmen, with violating the state's anti-racketeering law, entered the plea just a day before a jury selection was set to start in her trial. She pleaded guilty to 6 misdemeanors, accusing her of conspiring to intentionally interfere with the performance of election duties. As part of the deal, she will serve 6 years of probation. She will be fined $6,000 and will have to write an apology letter to Georgia and its residents. My understanding is she already has written that letter. She also recorded a statement for prosecutors and agreed to testify, here it is, truthfully against her co-defendants at future trials. Powell was initially charged with racketeering and 6 other counts as part of a wide-ranging scheme to keep the Republican president in power after he lost the 2020 election to Democrat Joe Biden. Prosecutors say she also participated in an unauthorized breach of elections equipment in a rural Georgia County elections office. The plea makes Powell the most prominent known person to be working with prosecutors investigating Trump's effort to overturn the election. Her cooperation in the case and participation in strategy talks threatened to expose the former president and offer insight on what he was saying and doing in the critical period after the election. Above all, the guilty plea is a remarkable about-face for a lawyer who, perhaps more than anyone else, strenuously pushed baseless conspiracy theories about a stolen election in the face of extensive evidence to the contrary. Do you remember when these punks were out there pushing these conspiracy theories, and the standard media, including, God help us, including the Associated Press, had a hard time just calling them liars? Do you remember that? Genuinely, it was difficult to find somebody in front of a camera that played on television, at least, who would call them liars. Eventually they did. Eventually, they had no choice. There was no way to talk about what is true, which is what a news person is obligated to do, without pointing out that these punks in Trump's camp had every opportunity to know the truth, and yet they appeared not to, which is another way of saying they're liars. Remember those days? Now look where we are. Powell's flipping on Trump and company. Good. Good. You might notice tremendous lack of what you can do in this show called What You Can Do tonight. There's nothing to do. We just need to appreciate from time to time the way we have changed the tone of these conversations. Y'all being vocal. Y'all putting in the work. Giving one representative the courage to speak boldly one day. Giving a news reporter the motivation to go out and get a story and to tell the truth frankly. It has a cumulative effect. I looked at Joe Biden's speech on Israel tonight and found him cautioning Israel not to act like not to make the same mistakes that the United States did in 2003. Good. You guys are having an effect, and we should stop and appreciate that. And tonight, Donald Trump is going to be considering just fleeing. Just straight out fleeing the country. Finding some place that doesn't have extradition and planting himself there. I bet he's kicking himself for not building that hotel in Moscow after all. Good job. One other thing, actually. One other thing. A lot of folks are going to be angry that Sidney Powell is only getting probation for attempting a coup. Me too. Me too. But I will say this. Don't let that take away too terribly much from the satisfaction you feel knowing that she's turning on her co-conspirators. I also would say, let's see how much she turns on them and whether she actually earns her reduced sentence. If she doesn't, then we should advocate that the prosecutors revoke the deal they gave her. Further, regardless of what happens, we should write the Bar Association. Give it some time. Give them the opportunity to do it on their own first, like big boys and girls. But if they fail, which they will, we should write the Bar Association of wherever Sidney Powell is registered and ask them to revoke her license to practice law. She has no business doing that ever again. Ever again. But tonight, we relax. Oh, what does the Wiki community have to say? Hit that live chat, I just realized. The anti-corporatists, yeah, I've been avoiding Gaza news. Vosh had a good bit on it. Don't go nuts over things completely out of your control and terrible. Yeah, this is not, honestly. Gaza is not completely out of our control. But this is a rare case where the Democrats are reacting to the leftists because they understand that there's no point in listening to the right-wing psychos anymore. Oh, I gotta read this. What's Donald James saying? Donald James, see, Jake is saying fleeing. I'm saying he could get suicidal, but we agree something is going to happen. Yeah, something that will not rely on the court because he can't handle that. Pinkerbell, he is too soft to do that. He is rich and pampered and will flee. I agree. He doesn't have the heart to do anything scary. Wicked Foxy Dragon, I'm pretty sure if you are a felon, you cannot have a law license. She wouldn't be a felon. She's pleading to misdemeanor counts only. So no felony, which is deeply sad. The anti-corporatists, if I recall correctly, there are already disbarment hearings against her, Jake. Oh, thank God. Yeah, let's give them a chance to do their thing. But if they fail, we should basically just do a campaign of annoying them. Tinkerbell, but when he gets caught and we drag him back, I mean, we'll give him the Epstein cell for sure, but no, withdrawn. Look, he is genuinely never faced consequences for anything. And without making light of how much we dislike him, just as a matter of predicting what a human being will do, we have no idea. He hasn't faced serious consequences for, like, not paying contractors he hired or stealing documents from the U.S. government or getting people, millions of Americans killed with his petty handling of COVID. We have no idea how he'll handle actual consequences, but we know they're coming. Jade Dragon, I've heard Trump is incontinent and rage. Maybe he'll have to be moved to a swimming pool as opposed to running. Nobody will want to wade into it. True. David Feldman thinks he'll get that way. Yeah. I don't know. I don't want to speculate. Wicked Foxy Dragon, I'm pretty sure. Oh, wait, we already said that. Yeah, I do think he's. I think no matter what, though, he's losing his political power. Isn't that crazy? Ron DeSantis was speaking out against him. It's way too late for DeSantis, but good. We had, the usual never follow politics seriously types, OAN watchers in the comments in support of Vivek Ramaswamy. I mean, Trump's days, I think, are more numbered than people have fully realized. I think by the time this is actually, when we're in the trial proper, when Trump is out there testifying, I think every power that exists will try to have jumped ship from Trump by then, and including the right-wing psychos who put out, their equivalent of Inspire magazine online, the Al-Qaeda rag, your Ben Shapiro's and what have you, because it's not going anywhere good. Hey, speaking of, let's keep talking about this punk. I'm going to risk getting a virus on my computer in order to okay. I'm going to risk getting a virus on my computer, apparently, literally, in order to bring you something from Troth Essential. Stand back and stand by while I actually grab this follow-up. Alrighty, Aphrodite. Hey, did you all know that Trump has a gag order on him? Probably not. Probably not, because he hasn't been really behaving that way. But I did notice something recently. He's still lashing out at various judges and courts, but not so much at Georgia, I note. He seems to be treading a little more carefully around Georgia. But not New York. Here he is talking about the New York State Attorney General, Letitia James, who sued me over a statute never used before for such a case, which means it's not a real law. Had a bad day in the rigged trial going on in Lower Manhattan. Her appraiser witness was a disaster on the stand, and her ridiculous valuations were shown to be incorrect. without even discussing the $18 million value she ascribes to Mar-a-Lago. The trial is a giant Democratic scam with a Trump/developer-hating judge who does whatever Letitia demands. He is totally afraid of her, but unfortunately has been overturned on many occasions by the Court of Appeals, including, in our case, which decision he refuses to even acknowledge. I'm trying to read it as accurately as I can, showing great disrespect for the appellate court. Businesses are watching this witch hunt trial and moving out of New York, and definitely not moving in. I couldn't keep it up. I just couldn't. I couldn't keep doing the loser voice. There he is, lying. Just lying about his case. And notice that it's the New York AG case. It's not the case with Tanya Chutkan. It is not, nor is it a case where a judge has taken him seriously. I've tried to be witty, and it's just not there. It's just I got nothing in the tank. What will Judge Chutkan do if Trump violates the gag order? That's the question. All right, that's what we're getting to. Only U.S. District Judge Tanya Chutkan knows how difficult it was for her to put a limited gag order, on Donald Trump this week. But however tough a call it was, the judge presiding over the federal election interference case will face an almost impossible task when she inevitably must enforce it. To be clear, the difficulty isn't over whether some version of a gag order was warranted. Before Chutkan granted it, while you and I were ranting and raving, saying where is some sort of law enforcement here, Special Counsel Jack Smith had laid out the former president's menacing statements against various actors across the legal system. That much was clear to the judge, who, during a Monday hearing on the gag order request, said it was troubling that Trump called Smith deranged and the special counsel's staff thugs. Yeah, troubling. Oh, that's concerning. That's a concern. We should sit here and mutter quietly about it, and maybe he'll get the vibe when we're like, maybe then he'll understand and he'll be shamed. People can't stand being thought of as rude. Understand? That's how these cowards think. That much was clear to the judge, who, during a Monday hearing on the gag order request, said it was troubling that Trump called Smith deranged and the special counsel's staff thugs. During that hearing in Washington, Chutkan asked Trump lawyer John Laurel, if you call certain people thugs enough times, doesn't that suggest that someone should get them off the streets? Yes, it does. Republicans, by the way, are thugs. The real challenge, then, wasn't justifying the order, but figuring out what to do if, and more likely when, Trump, the thug, violates it. As Chutkan acknowledged Monday, an order is sort of pointless without an enforcement mechanism. Well, our enforcement mechanism is to sit and mumble at very low volume. They'll suspect we're talking about them, and then when they walk up to our circle, we'll just suddenly all stop talking, go. Then he'll know we were talking about him, and that will embarrass. That's how annoying these golf club going, country club membership having, car dealership frequenting, upper middle class annoying people behave, and I hate it. So what's the mechanism? At one point during the hearing, the judge asked the prosecution what it would seek for a violation. Sorry, just the way upper middle class people behave annoy me, and the way rich people behave infuriates me. Whether it would be revoking supervised release, financial penalties, in other words, revoking supervised release, a consequence, financial penalties, a non-consequence. It's just asking him to take more money out of his cult's wallets. Nothing to him, of course. It'll just be like, sure, make it $1 trillion zillion, and I'll make the bill out to my followers. Home detention, a pseudo penalty. Criminal contempt, I mean, unless you toss him in jail, that's nothing. It's another charge to be decided later. Are you really all right? Or moving up the trial date, an actual penalty for him. but one I don't recommend. Prosecutor Molly Gaston noted all those options are available. Kind of like when you're at a candy store and you see all the options and you just can't choose. It's not good that all those options are available. I would have liked the judge to have made it clear on that day what the penalty will be. As if to suggest the absurdity or even impossibility of detaining the leading 2024 GOP presidential candidate, Trump lawyer Lauro asked Chutkin, "Is Your Honor going to put President Trump in jail during the course of a campaign?" Yes, is the answer. Yes. Not our fault. It's not the campaign's fault. It's not the U.S. government's fault. It's not the people's fault that Trump is in court right now. It's Trump's fault. Is Your Honor going to put President Trump in jail during the course of a campaign? If you say, well, of course not. No, we're going to mutter. We're going to mutter to ourselves. That's the enforcement mechanism. Then you are saying that a campaign is allowed to affect a trial, in which case every single one of you who gets in any legal trouble at all, I think, is obligated to run for president of the United States. Announce your candidacy as soon as you get a subpoena. As soon as the police come knocking, announce your candidacy and bring it up in court constantly. Doesn't matter when. Say you're running for 2028. Say you're running for 2032. Doesn't matter. It does not matter. Say you're running for 2035 after a hypothetical accident takes out whatever president we have then, as well as half the U.S. government, and we have a sort of kumite for the next president. If it's allowed, if you're just allowed to announce you're running for president, and have that interfere with your trial, then we have an obligation to show the judicial system how silly that is. There is a separation of powers. I think the answer to this is obvious. I don't want the trial moved up based upon his indiscretions, because he will use that, and rightly so, as an excuse to say he wasn't given a fair crack at his defense. It was rushed, blah, blah, blah. I want him to have every opportunity to present a solid defense. I know he can't. I know he cannot. But it's like if LeBron James was playing a local mouthy middle schooler in a game of basketball. I don't want that middle schooler calling penalties and pretending that's why he lost to LeBron James. Nonsense. No, toss his ass in a jail cell. It's that simple. He threatens people. This guy who's being charged with a coup threatens people, you toss him in jail. Put him in an environment where he is unable to threaten people. It's not difficult. It just takes a tiny, tiny bit of courage, which is sorely lacking in the U.S. Court system. Come on, Chutkin, find your guts. Let us see what the Wiki community has to say. Environmental Coffee House. I made a comment tonight on Charlie Kirk's live stream, and somebody recognized me and said, "The climate Nazi is here." Holy awesome. Awesome. I would advise you... never mind. Withdrawn. Wicked Foxy Dragon. He's going to say that anyway. He is, but I don't want him to have a point. Radical Centrist. Ooh, go have an implausible whopper on me. Oh, my man. I will. Thank you. Thank you with the very kind $10. You know I love those whoppers. Oh, they're so good. Wireless Mike, the climate Nazi? What the actual... Yeah, that's a significant honor. To be recognized and hated that much by Charlie Kirk's audience means you are doing the right thing. Public utility. Impossible to reason with psychopaths. Yes, it is. Unfriendly atheist. I must go do capitalism. Y'all be in, or you'll be in my ear. Well, sir, enjoy your bit of capitalism. Sucks that you have to do it, but I hope you do it well. Letter hack, badge of honor. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Baker Bell and Foxy having a chuckle at you. Donald James X2. Yep, the American people don't care, that's for sure. In fact, you'll get votes. Yeah, we are trying to get a hold of this country. The folks in here, in this chat right now, are doing the work of, I would say, a large nation. We are a large nation, but are doing the work of many, many times their numbers in terms of spreading the message of getting a hold of ourselves and growing up as a country. And this includes the people from outside the country. Thank you for helping us and guiding us, because we need it. We don't have a lot of role models in the U.S. Legal AF seems to think it wasn't appealable, said the anti-corporatist. I hope not. I hope not. But regardless, I mean, moving up his trial date, what's going to happen? Let's just run down that for a second. Trump says, here's his trial date. Trump says something dangerous. Oh, time to react. We're going to move up your trial date. Trump says another dangerous threat. Oh, we're going to move up your trial date. He says another dangerous threat. Oh, we're moving that up so much, you guys. Another dangerous thing. We're going to move it just a little, 1 weekend closer. Another dangerous thing. Puts out a video saying, get them all now. Go get him. It's just, you move up his trial date, nothing changes in the immediate. Nothing changes. He hasn't actually been punished. And you have to keep moving it up then as a punishment. And the trial date gets closer and closer. And it gives him an opportunity to say, they're trying to deny me the ability to make a defense. And then, when he makes a poor defense, they moved up my trial date. But it doesn't actually solve the problem. However, you grab him by the scruff of the neck and throw him in jail, that solves the problem. And if you're worried about doing it now, boy, I hate to think what's going to happen when you got to swing the gavel down and say guilty or not guilty. Let me put it like this. It'll be a hell of a lot less weight on your mind, Judge Chutkin, if you are hitting that gavel and giving your decision and Trump is already in jail. You won't have to consider, and you shouldn't be considering this, but most people in the United States court system are not terribly brave, so she probably would consider this, how his fans will react. In fact, for the whole trial then, you don't have to sit there on the edge of your seat like, what are people going to do? This guy's looking guiltier and guiltier. What are people going to do when I got to sentence him? I can't sentence him to jail. We just can't imagine what people would do. After all, politics is involved here. And I have to take that in consideration as a totally separate branch of government. Just put his ass in jail. Rip that Band-Aid off. His behavior currently has earned him jail time. There's a reason we have a difference between jail and prison. Now, we're sitting here having a whole court case about whether or not this guy should go to prison. And we have jails so you can hold dangerous assholes, in theory. We instead just hold black people. But in theory, we have them so you can hold dangerous assholes while they await trial, because they are acting like dangerous assholes. And that's exactly what Trump's doing. And I just want to point out that even with Chutkin's weak sauce hesitance, it's still affecting Trump. And he's mouthing off about the New York civil case. Everybody's on cable media is acting as though the reason he's mouthing off about that and not so much about Georgia and not so much about the federal case is because he really, really cares about his business. I'm sure he really, really does care about his business. Not as much as he really, really cares about his freedom. It's because of the consequence. Environmental Coffee House, although it is ultra-capitalist oligarchy, the wealth is based on capital, as fake as the capital is. Yeah. Go back up, though. Environmental Coffee House. Again, Donald Jackson Hinkle called himself a communist, and look at him now. Labels don't really mean a lot. Maybe progressive does, though, and we are not phonies and frauds. I thought a little bit about this, actually. Y'all, that's a great jumping off point. All I care about with an alliance of people that call themselves progressives, and frankly, even people that call themselves Democrats, I care about having people in the same party in the presidency, in the House, and in the Senate in 2024. That's it. We can argue this and that and the other thing till we're blue in the face, and it's frankly a good idea that we do that with some frequency. But disagreeing with these people does not make them enemies, and fundamentally, you got to understand that. I disagree with Hassan Piker on maybe every video, but at least one that I can think of that I've seen of his. But we are voting the same way, and we are going to be, most likely, and we are going to be effing shouting the same advice when it comes to voting. And functionally, that's all that matters. If you want to change somebody's politics within that set of goals, sure, have a nuanced conversation with them. Good news, you're talking to people who are interested in the truth. And if you're right, you should be able to make your case with the facts and enough time given. But the way you get enough time with these people is that and I say these people, it's whoever you disagree with. The way you get enough time with them is you convince them that you have the same goals. And you should. Because right now our goals are remarkably simple. It is a blue House, Senate, and White House. I wanted Bernie in 2020. And I got Biden. I'm very happy with Biden. He has done lefty things. The most left president we've ever had. It's deeply sad that that's true, but he's done a fine job. Not a great job, not an ideal job, but good enough. Okay, yeah, you get another bite at the apple. Take a whack at 2024, and when we get you a blue House and Senate, we've seen him show that he will sign what we put in front of him. So let's put some interesting things in front of him, and that's where the interesting conversations happen. What you should be really focusing on, if you care about a specific policy set, which I would hope that you do, or at least you're developing opinions that are specific as time goes on. What you should truly focus on is literally your neighbors. Get yourself a representative who believes in your specific policy set. Because if you want policy put forward, that's the person that's got to do it. You should be writing specifically your district's representative and saying, like, I want this policy. I want this addressed. I want you to introduce it tonight, or I want you to introduce it this week. But when it comes to your neighbor from 5 states over, blue House, blue Senate, blue White House. Work together, get it done. Excessive audio. Preventing the global surge of fascism from taking over is a pretty appealing common goal. Exactly. Yeah, I'm sure the Mon Calamari have all kinds of opinions on how moist the Rebel Alliance spaceships are supposed to be. And we could talk about that, but we all agree we got to get rid of, the red swords and what have you. Yeah, and the spaghetti fingers guy. They gotta go. We agree on that. Let's blow up the Death Star. Environmental Coffee House. I bet your dad was wonderful, the anti-corporatist. Oh, let me see what has inspired that. The anti-corporate, aside from his personality, the anti-corporatist, we'd always go, oh crap, we should have recorded that. Oh, I'm only getting the tail end. My dad was such a great raconteur, but we never thought to record him. We were just enraptured. Oh, that's fantastic. I really like that. Donald James Donald James X. Yeah, democratic socialism or communism, but both are cool with me. Nothing to argue about. But true communists want to make their point. Yeah, that's true. And here's a wild thing. I hope that 2024 we have our giant victory, and I hope that we have enough of a victory that by 2026 we have like a group of lefty mayors with 2 years of experience who are like, what experiments could we try at the town level? If myself and 3 other lefty mayors around me wanted to form a union of towns, what social programs would we be able to afford to put in place? Could we, at our little town, for example, manufacture insulin? How much money would we need? It costs $16 million to replace a bridge in a tiny little town where I was a radio DJ, and you know what? They raised it. How much would it be to build a facility that makes insulin? $16 million? $20 million? $25 million? How big of a town would you need to be to raise that? Is there anything that prevents you from doing that? I mean, you could do stuff like that, and we could be seeing that sort of thing as early as 2026-ish, depending on how well the next 365 days goes. I am wildly optimistic. Boom! Yes, Rex Track, 100%. Yes, the anti-corporatist. But yeah, we also need to be doing more money out of politics, like we always say. Yeah. Donald James X, thank you very much. Environmental Coffee House. Well, my dogs are... Oh, never mind. I'm going back up. Let me jump in and see if I've addressed... let me address... Second. But how are you expecting this to work to win over those that have seen Vic as one of the stronger Republican candidates? On the tiny chance that somebody Deadman 21-122 is watching. You asked a question, but how are you expecting this to work to, and I'm sorry, I forgot to mention this during the recorded segment, but how are you expecting this, meaning my previous day's video, to work to win over those that have seen Vic as one of the stronger Republican candidates? By instructing you as to what a con man looks like. That's it. Folks, if the rest of you have somebody, we're doing this. We're doing this other thing. But let me just add on the Vivek Ramaswamy thing. If the rest of you have like Ramaswamy fans, Trump fans, or really anybody that still supports the Republicans in any way, just explain to them over and over and over again how con men work. Just do that. They might not even learn the lessons they need to learn about how con men work. They might have trouble recognizing the next one or the next one or the next one. Keep explaining to them how con men work and how the people they support are con men for 2 reasons. Number 1, they will get the message that these people are con men. Number 2, it relieves them of responsibility. And certainly the last segment we're doing tonight. It's been a while since I've rocked Rebel headquarters, but when I tell you that there are still good people at TYT, this is who I'm talking about. I'm talking about folks like Yasmin Aliyah Khan. Yasmin Aliyah Khan over at TYT did a follow-up on Rebel headquarters to a segment we were talking about, I think sometime last week, Podium Gate. Yeah. All that ways back. Podium Gate. If you're not aware, the basics is this. Sarah Huckabee Sanders paid $19,000 for a podium and then tried to push a law that said it's illegal to look in specifically to how she bought that podium. Awfully suspicious. Well, it turns out it's even more suspicious than it initially seemed. Yeah, we knew that the money went to her friend, and then she went on a Paris vacation with her friend, and that her friend didn't actually sell podiums. But it gets even more suspicious. Yasmin Aliyah Khan, ladies and gentlemen.
Huckabee Sanders, governor of Arkansas, has been.
That's not Yasmin Aliyah Khan. Darn it. Hopefully I have it up. Oh, I've got Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. I've got High Spirits. Well, it looks like we're doing Midas Touch. Oh, I don't want that. Stand by, folks. You know what? It's not going to be a pretty recording. But it'll give you a little sense of what the live show's like. Here, I'll let you see something moving. My flapping lips. Oh, I prefer the Yasmin Aliyah Khan Rebel HQ version of this video because well, disappointing. I'm going to have to re-record all of this unless I go to my history. Here we go. Aha, haha. Stand by. Okay, well, sorry, Yasmin. The white men have aligned against you again. We'll do another con piece at some point. Here's Midas Touch giving a much less entertaining breakdown.
Caught in a major political scandal that may not only lead to her being removed forcibly as the governor of Arkansas as things progress, she may indeed be arrested and charged with multiple felonies under state and federal law. This scandal is being referred to as Lectern Gate.
Yeah, because I figure if I do, then you would talk about nothing else instead of the important actions that we're
It's Podium Gate, but okay.
actually taking today, which unfortunately is not surprising that while we are focused on things that actually impact our state and impact Arkansans, the media wants to spend all of their time focused on things that frankly don't. Any other questions?
The Republican governor of Arkansas, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, has been accused of buying a $19,000 lectern.
Okay, so never mind. That is the right video. Yasmin's just as lazy as I am. She doesn't want to. She's using Midas Touch. For the record, I have to do that because I'm not as smart as she is. And I need their help making the political point. But okay, all right, you rapscallion. Let's have a gander. Because I like her breakdown here.
With taxpayer money, and now she might be facing felony charges for doing so.
They're going to do the audit. Do you plan to do an internal investigation in your administration?
I don't think it's necessary.
In case you don't know, a lectern is basically just a podium, and she allegedly spent $19,000 on one of these things. So I was curious, how much do these things normally go for, just for reference? So the most expensive one that I found when I was looking just very quickly, excluding any specialty or vintage items, was around $21,000, but that certainly wasn't the norm.
Now that's interesting. And that's 2 points. 2 points against fraud. Because if it was fraud, and the most expensive one that she could find was $21,000, why wouldn't Sarah Huckabee Sanders just do $21,000? Unless there's a very specific reason why she would do $19,000.
That's the cost for a very high-end lectern that's, handmade and artisan crafted with real solid wood, etc. You can absolutely get a decent, well-made and functional lectern for a few $1,000s or even for a few $100s. It's just something that you stand behind, and it has a little tabletop where you can put your papers. Today, Governor Sanders doesn't even use the lectern when she's addressing the public because she says the media is just way too preoccupied with it. She says that the media wants to distract her and her people from focusing on the things that really matter to Arkansans. But it is a thing that matters to the people of her state, including her fellow Republicans, because despite her attempts to downplay the significance of the purchase, there's more to the story than just bad budgeting. So this all started when a blogger and attorney, Matt Campbell, made a Freedom of Information Act request back in June. Around the same time, Sanders and her friends, including Virginia Beckett, were on a girls' trip in Paris. Matt gets some...
Now, wait a minute. One thing real quick. Hey, gang, do you recall when I said FOIA this, FOIA that, FOIA is the strongest thing in a journalist's arsenal? 2 things I want to say on that. Number 1, ha-ha! Case in point, it broke this story. Number 2, I misspoke when I said that. It's not the strongest thing in a journalist's arsenal. It's the strongest thing in your arsenal. You have the ability to do a Freedom of Information Act request about anything that falls under it, which is most government business, at any time. It could be denied. They have to have a reason. They could theoretically charge you for the information. I know it sounds crazy, but they could. If it takes a government employee time to get the information, for example, let's say you want this. How much did that podium cost? And it takes a government employee 3 hours to pull it up. They could charge you for that employee's time. But aside from a tiny thing like that, if you're doing a serious request for information, there is a legal obligation that government officials have to fulfill your request for transparency. Just remember that. If there's something that you feel like nobody's looking into and it needs to be looked into, you can do it. And if you decide to do it, I will show you how. It was literally my job for 7 years. I will show you how to do it. It is not difficult. I'll give you the form. It is not difficult. And it's a hell of a lot of fun. These people are not used to having to be told what to do. And it's really, really genuinely satisfying to make these pampered motherfuckers have to do it, even 5 minutes of work.
The documents he requested, and he noticed a line item of note. $19,000 was paid to Beckett Events LLC. Virginia Beckett, who was in Paris with Sanders, that's her company. Her company...
Why would $19,000 specifically stick out to him? Fraud is the reason.
Charged Sanders $19,000 for a lectern, even though her company doesn't really deal with the sale of things like lecterns. When this was brought up to the Sanders camp, they posted a picture of the lectern in question, claiming that it was a custom Falcon podium. Those usually retail for around $7,500, but then Falcon came out and said, no, that's not one of our podiums.
So just to be clear, they said this is a fancy brand of podium. This is a Falcon podium. But even though they said this is a fancy brand, the fancy brand still costs less than half of what they paid. And then the fancy brand said, no, it isn't. It is not one of our fancy podiums. Please, we are the true fancy podium people. That's at best a Palcom. That's at best like a Gucci knockoff. Certainly, we wouldn't allow somebody to say that's one of our fancy $7,500 podiums. They paid how much for it? My God. Too much.
This was a fake Falcon that probably cost way less than $7,500. So why then did Sanders pay 19,000 taxpayer dollars to her friend's company if not for the podium? We may never know, but we did see Sanders with her friends partying in Paris at around the same time this payment was made. You're free to draw whatever conclusions you want from that.
Way overpaid, it seems like, for a podium. Certainly suspicious that she tried to pass a law saying you're not allowed to look in. You're not allowed to look into this in particular. And shortly after the purchase was made, her and her friends boogie down France. Your dime. $19,000 still seems like an awfully specific amount. I know it was 19,200, yada yada, but why not 20? Why not round it out?
Started to heat up around the purchase, so in September, Sanders called a special legislative session in an attempt to change the Freedom of Information Act. She didn't want to turn over her Paris travel records or anything else that would have incriminated either her or her administration. To be clear, she was wanting less government transparency. But then we saw documents turn up, including an invoice from Beckett Events for the $19,000 Falcon podium. On the invoice, someone had written in the words, "to be reimbursed." The implication there was that the state GOP was going to reimburse Sanders and the taxpayers for the purchase. However, it later became clear through emails that were uncovered that the note was made after the purchase had been made public and that the note was intentionally not dated. The original
Just want to say we talked about that.
intent was never for the purchase to be reimbursed or for the state GOP to be involved at all. And to that last point, that's likely the reason why the purchase was set to just $19,000 instead of, say, $20,000. In the state of Arkansas, purchases over $20,000 usually require approval, $19,000 doesn't. So now, in tampering with the document, the Sanders administration has committed a criminal offense. And in all of this, Sanders was complicit in committing wire fraud. Going forward, Sanders could be facing...
Everybody hold up. Because you have to report it. 20,000 and over, you have to report. Under 20,000, you don't. So they picked somewhere in the 19,000 range. That's the most they're allowed to scam out of you at a time without reporting. And then some mothering hero did a Freedom of Information Act request about a series of expenditures. Had a head on their shoulders, happened to know that, I'm assuming, happened to know that rule about $20,000, saw something, a single line item worth $19,000 and went, wait a minute. Come on. And there it is. There it is. She didn't want to have anybody know about this. She just wanted that little receipt to float by amidst all the other paperwork. She didn't want anybody to pay attention. She's from a group that got started in times when nobody paid attention to anything. Look for things worth $19,000 if you happen to be going through the budgets in Arkansas. That's how many times these people steal from you. That's good old-fashioned corruption. Truly, that's like Tammany Hall stuff. You know, like $1,000 for a hammer, that sort of thing. That's what this is. If you're not familiar with Tammany Hall and Boss Tweed and all that, it was like the turn of the century corruption in the U.S. And basically what was happening was a government official was giving his friends lucrative government contracts. You know, fix up this room. But instead of, if fixing up the room consisted of sweeping it and putting a coat of paint on one door for whatever reason, lacquer, let's say, on a door, and then charging the government like $100,000. And then what they would do is give half to the politician as payment for the ability to charge a ludicrous amount for almost no work. That's what Sarah Sanders has done here. Was there an actual kickback? Did she get an actual cash while she was in France with her buddy? I doubt it. Sounds like she just wanted to have a girls' night. And she has no soul or morals. She has certainly no sense of ethics. She's a Republican. So she scammed you for the money. She's very generous with your money. It's just standard corruption to her. Probably never occurred to her. Think of it as anything else. Think of it as anything out of the ordinary.
Felony charges and removal from office. Members of her own party are raising questions about the lectern, and her approval rating amongst her constituents is dismal. A recent poll showed that Sanders only has a 40% approval rating, which is below average, with 31% saying they disapproved of her and 29% remaining neutral. And when asked if Sanders would conduct an internal investigation into the lectern purchase, Sanders stated that she didn't think it would be necessary. If body language alone was any indicator, she doesn't think the investigation is necessary because she already knows what happened to the money. What I think is interesting about these types of stories is that Americans will be the first to call entire nations' governments corrupt, but we don't always recognize it or see it whenever it happens within our own government and among our own government officials. Maybe when we do, it's usually treated as like a one-off type situation, like a bad apple, if you will. But corruption doesn't occur in a vacuum. It involves complicity from at least a few different people. People who would have to be high-ranking enough to get away with wrongdoing and have the resources to cover it up. But we are the pinnacle of democracy. We have checks and balances. We're supposed to be above all of this, right? And that's kind of what makes it so scary whenever corruption does turn up here in the United States. It means that all of the checks and balances that we so cleverly put in place over the course of several centuries have all failed. Either that or they're working as they were actually intended to. It's hard to tell when the people writing the anti-corruption laws are the same ones who are in positions to break them. For example, why was Sanders, as a governor who had apparently committed a major crime, in a position to change the laws that would potentially incriminate her? Why are these loopholes?
Whoa. Now do you know why I like this gal? That's a great question. That's a fantastic question. That is actually getting to the heart of the matter. We caught her. And for the record, checks and balances worked this time. The FOIA request worked. This is akin to a Hail Mary, but it's a fair play. But why? Why in the first place was it possible for Sarah Sanders to do this and to be able to cover it up? She was in the process of covering it up when this all spilled out into the public eye. It's a great question for which Arkansans are going to have to come up with an answer. In Georgia, to stop their corrupt governor from issuing pardons to his corrupt buddies, they took away the governor's ability to issue pardons on their own. Arkansans, I would recommend you tell every politician running at the state level that taking away the governor's ability to cover up their crimes needs to be part of their platform.
Loopholes present within our current system. Were they put there intentionally? I don't know. I'm not suggesting anything like that, but I am saying that people in elected public positions cannot and should not be trusted to oversee and regulate their own operations. These loopholes need to be filled, but unfortunately, the people who can do that are the same people who are benefiting from exploiting them. There is
Agreed. Arkansans tell people running at the state level that you want them to run in part on an anti-corruption platform. That should be something that you can get bipartisan agreement on. Should appeal. If you have a savvy enough politician, it should appeal across the aisle. Taking away undue power from a position that is already too powerful is perfect. Perfect. It's a great issue to run on. Run on that. In the meantime, keep talking to your local news agencies. Make sure they stay on this like white on rice. It wouldn't hurt, by the way, to encourage politicians from all over the country, hell, all over the world, to talk about this. By the way, if you are from a country that is not the United States, I have terrible news for you. I have spent the last year soul searching, trying to find a decent conservative party. You know, the model conservatives that we could say, this is what our conservatives could be like. They are all like this. Every country around the world that I have taken even a cursory glance at has a conservative party that is like this, because, at least in all the English-speaking places, we have spent the last 30 years under neoliberal hell. And this is how conservatives behave when they are given the opportunity. The good news is for you, you can use this as a template. A template for how to ferret out the absolute worst apples. So look at what they're doing. Look at how much they're spending. If you see odd expenditures, ask questions. Don't stop till you get answered. Another jailbird on the way. Maybe a cellmate for Trump. Obsessive audio. Every damn one. Yes. Wireless mic. This was not a cool crime. Yeah, this was a lame crime. I'm not very satisfied with this. I like a nice, cool crime. This was not one. Public utility. Conservative equals hypocrite. Short list. Yeah. Pendulous Dragon. Sorry, I'm not very chatty, folks. It's been a bad bipolar day for me. We need good news for a couple of days in a row. For real, for real. Yeah, we do. But we got great courtroom news. And at the risk of triggering the bad part of the bipolar coming back, let me tell you some. No, you know what? Let's walk the line. If you're having a bipolar day, let's go right down the middle, because I have some genuinely right down the middle, even you out news. Yeah, Gaza's a nightmare. Yeah, what happened on October 7th in Israel is a nightmare. We can acknowledge that and accept that both of those things are true. Would you believe that Joe Biden, a fucking icon of the centrist Dems, is actually walking the line? Is actually going out of his way to not support an attack on the Palestinian people, preaching peace. There are protests in Israel from left-wing Israelis who are saying, don't use my pain as an excuse to do your evil. The world is waking up. Why is this middle-of-the-road news? Because the world hasn't woken up. Because more evil will happen. But the world is waking up. There's hope. There's a silver lining. And let's not forget, Sarah Huckabee Sanders is regretting her trip to France, is regretting her recent theft from you with a podium. She is wishing she hadn't done that. She is wishing she hadn't been generous to her friend. Donald Trump gotta be wishing that he would have just shook his fist at Joe Biden and left quietly. I'll tell you what, Sidney Powell is definitely wishing she hadn't tried to steal the election. Rudy Giuliani, definitely wishing he hadn't sexually harassed his assistant, assaulted as well. He's wishing he hadn't tried to overturn the election or that he had threatened those election workers. It sucks that we live in a world where all those things happen. But given that we live in that world, this is an awfully big upturn in the fortunes of decent human beings. You are just entering, just now, my friend, you are just entering into an era where you are going to see comeuppance after comeuppance after comeuppance after come and get 'em uppance. The reason you're going to see this is the same reason why we had consistent votes for Hakeem Jeffries over and over and over and over. The powers that be, which include the Democrats, have learned that the Republican Party is out of control, is dangerous, and is unsustainable. Even the grifters on our side, even the Joe Manchins of the world aren't helping out their scumbag buddies anymore. Even the judges that would normally say, we can't have a rich white man go to proper prison. No. We'll do ankle monitor, but we don't have to turn it on. Even they understand that you cannot sustain having these people. It's genuinely a danger to us all, including them, which is the only person they care about, out in the world, pulling the levers of power. They'll crash it. They'll crash it. Whatever the levers of power control, they will crash into the side of a mountain. So, all of them are turning, including some Republicans. This is the end. It's going to be fun. The end of this effing roller coaster that we've been on, which has been a lot of waiting in line and a lot of slowly going up a hill in the hot sun and then getting stalled and having to be repaired and then going a little more and stalling again. We're finally at the end. And the end is the loop-de-loops that they advertise on the commercials for the theme park. I got lost in this analogy, but the point is, you made it to the fun part. Congratulations. Now you get to rhetorically kick their ass and do a lot of well-earned, smug I told you so's to a lot of naysayers. It's going to be fun. Folks, I had a blast hanging out with you tonight. I had a blast laughing at the woes of people that are genuinely evil. And I had a blast making fun of Vivek Ramaswamy. But I'm going to go now. Thank you very much for joining me. This has been WYCD Wicked. That stands for What You Can Do. My name's Jake. See you tomorrow at 9, hopefully.